So we have tons of people on right now. I'm going to go ahead and get us started. So welcome to today's session, everyone. John, you can go ahead and start your webcam again. This is Lauren Hertel with the Robert and Patricia Switzer Foundation. We are thrilled to have you all here today for a presentation by John Kinyon. And I just want to say, when we sent out a message a few months ago asking what kinds of communication topics people would be interested in having a training on, nonviolent or empathic communications was the #1 topic brought to us. And I just want to thank Linda. Linda, could you give a quick wave to everyone? I want to thank Linda, who's both a Switzer family member as well as a trustee on our board, for hooking us up with John Kinyon, who is our presenter and trainer today. It's already been a joy to work with him, and I've been very excited about this particular session now for months. You all should have received some of his handouts leading up, so you've got a little bit of a sense of who he is. I'm going to go ahead and let him introduce himself. And then just a reminder that I am on the line. I'm going to go ahead and turn my webcam off so that we can focus on John. You all leave your webcams on so that he can see each of you. But I will be in the background helping people with tech and also helping with the questions as they come in during the session itself. So again, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to John. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Lauren. Wow. Hi, everybody. It is so good to be with you. I've been looking forward to this for a while now. And yeah, of the various existential challenges facing humanity, the health of the environment, the changing of climate, and the disastrous possibilities around that are really very, that's probably the one I tend to focus on the most myself in terms of my concern and my care. And so the fact that I get to help support you all in any way is just a real privilege and an honor. And I just thank you for the work you're doing. I think it's incredibly, not just important, but vital to our human survival and well-being. So I just want to thank you for your work and for being here, for being interested in this topic. I believe that what I like to kind of generally call empathic communication is a real core part of human health and wellness and well-being, that you know, paying attention to the kind of more traditional things around health, you know, like what are the food that sustains us and exercise and things is, but I really believe that in addition to things like mindfulness now, it's becoming much more mainstream and seen as critical to our health and well-being. So for me is this ability to have conversations that are where we connect empathically and we know how to bring ourselves to that place and resolve conflicts from that place. And I just think it's just part of our human health, and as well as the health of how we relate to the environment and to nature and to the ecosystems. And so for me, it's all connected. And again, thank you for your interest in this part of it. Just real quick, just remind you my background. For basically almost 30 years now, I've been doing work related to empathic, how human beings experience empathic connection and what takes us away from that, and communication components and skills for that. About over 20 years ago, I started with the work of nonviolent communication and worked very closely with the creator of that, Marshall Rosenberg, for many years. And he was my mentor, and I learned so much from him, and I'm so grateful to him. About 15 years ago, I started co-developing a body of work that came to be called Mediate Your Life, which turned into a year program that I've offered all over the US, or different places in the US and different countries around the world. So yeah, so I've got a lot of things I want to share with you in a really short period of time. So I'll give you a bit of a taste, and definitely be available to follow up with any of you interested. And I'll say some things about that at the end, but just even individually, I'm happy to follow up with anybody and just support your wanting to integrate any of this learning into what you do, because I so want you to have those tools to support what you're doing. All right, so I'm going to start with Oh, actually, I'm going to speak to something Daniel wrote me about, which is if I had anything to say about connecting and, communicating and connecting across Zoom and virtual formats. And so I hope to model that a bit and just how I go through everything we do. But I thought I'd say something at the very beginning about that so a big part of my orientation to this work is mindfulness. It's like how we can know ourselves as aware, conscious beings, and that the more I can bring that, as if I'm a facilitator of something on Zoom, the more I can try to be really kind of present and aware of what I'm doing, speaking, the words coming right now, and looking into the camera lens actually as another little thing to kind of create some connection. But basically just slowing things down at times and being, kind of just being mindful in my speaking and the listening. And when I will invite some people up to work with me, ways that just support that, not just using the right words, but to really focus on the quality of presence. So I think as simple as that might sound, that really makes a huge difference. All right, so we'll see if I can do that while I'm with you for this time. So in service of that, I'm just going to take a breath, and maybe all of you are maybe rushing to get settled and coming from all kinds of disturbance happening in the world right now. It's quite a altered state of reality. So I just invite you to kind of slow down for a moment, just kind of experience yourself in the room you're at and breathing and arriving, noticing your breath, feeling your body for a second. And that just taking that pause helps me too, kind of gather myself and I come sort of speaking from a different place inside perhaps than the automaticity of the mind, which helps us, but sometimes gets in the way. So I want to start with the 4 communication components that come out of the work of nonviolent communication. That work's also sometimes called compassionate communication. And so I'm just going to briefly touch on each of those 4 components. And then I'm going to work with somebody. I'm going to work with Eunice first, kind of demonstrating that a little more fully. And then a few other folks I want to get to as well to demonstrate some different applications of these 4 components. So the components: observation, feeling, need, and request. And sometimes people learn these components in a way that like they're just sort of steps in a communication process or something. And for me, they're much more than that. Each one is its own doorway into what I like to call empathic connection. So connection, but a particular kind of connection. It's empathic. And what do I mean by that? Where we're in touch with our commonality, our sense of sharing the same humanity, all being connected as humans, and sharing that same connection with life itself on the planet. So the connection where we feel that sameness, that commonality that underlies our differences. And then also the connection where we feel naturally motivated to give and receive, to want to contribute from the heart, to care, to support, to want to work together, to cooperate, out of the enjoyment of that. And we're hardwired, right? And biologically, we know we're hardwired to be giving and receiving in that caring way, that collaborative way with one another. So it's how do we deepen that sense of connection, and then how do we come back to it when we get triggered, we say, triggered into the fight flight system, into the survival part of the brain, the amygdala, the reptilian brain, they call it, right? So these 4 components I find incredibly like lighthouses in the fog or something, to find our way back, especially when we get lost. So observation, and the key, what I like to think of observation and all 4 of these as basically ways of using language, but even more importantly, ways of being aware and having different qualities of mindfulness, different aspects of consciousness, really, as human beings, having that ability. So observation I think of as awareness of mind, of our mind activity. So it's being aware of the mind and then being able to communicate from that awareness of our mind and other people's minds. And that the mind, I like to think of the mind doing 2 basic things: perceiving, like sense perceptions, and then thinking, generating thoughts. And with this first component of observation, kind of the key differentiation is observing versus evaluating. And a way that sometimes we're evaluating just in terms of what we value, like what's in the word evaluation. We evaluate based on our values and what we care about. But then we also evaluate very frequently in terms of how we're judging based on our moral belief system, what we think is right and wrong, good and bad, the way things should or shouldn't be. And so sometimes we're judging things. We're judging ourselves, we're judging others in terms of that right, wrong, good, bad kind of paradigm. So just noticing the difference. This first component is just sort of being aware of to what am I just observing what's happening, words that are being spoken, body language, tone of voice, things like that, just pure kind of what we're seeing and hearing, and all the senses, versus these thoughts that are just all coming up automatically all the time in our minds, right? And a lot of those are evaluating. We have to evaluate as organisms. Any organism, every moment we're evaluating what's happening to see, is it in harmony with what is healthy and serving us or not? But again, noticing when do these judging kind of right, wrong thoughts come? And so that's the first component, to be aware of how we're observing what is and how we're judging and evaluating what is. And then using language that reflects that ability to observe. Because when it's very easy to be, as you know, just completely absorbed into our thinking, our perceiving of reality, but also to, especially the thoughts that mesmerize us, that kind of transfix us, and we sort of go unconscious into that thinking, and we don't even know we're thinking. It's just happening, and we're just caught up in the current of our thoughts. So to be able to practice this stepping back and knowing what our mind is doing and being able to put language to that from that place of observing. So that's observation. Feeling. Feeling is our connection with the body, awareness of the body. And a lot of times when we're using language, we maybe aren't keeping that distinction too clear between what's happening in our mind and what's happening in our bodies. And we might think we're talking about our feelings and our body, but actually we're still talking about our thoughts. So for me, feeling is awareness of body and connection, a kind of compassionate presence with the body. And I like to think of body feelings as in two levels. One is this physical sensations like pressure and temperature and pain, or itching, or that kind of raw physical sensation, right? And then the level of emotion. So from my understanding, there are different pathways and networks of emotion, systems of emotion in the brain and the body, nervous system. And so that emotion, the mood and emotional tone and quality. So words that point to that, like fearful, angry, sad, happy, joyful, those that language of emotion, right? So we can have a language of physical sensation in the body and a language of emotion experience, right? But often, most of us have learned a way of communicating where we mix that up with our thoughts. So we're still in our thinking and evaluating and judging and analyzing and coming up with stories of who's to blame for how we're feeling. So saying things like, well, I just feel betrayed, I feel manipulated, I feel attacked. Even though we're using the word feel, we're in my view, we're still in the mind, what the mind is doing, even though we're using the word feel. Now we're trying to get at it. There are feelings that go with that for sure, right? And so but then can we be more precise with our language and our attention? Can we actually feel into our bodies? Can we feel those sensations? Can we feel those emotions? But we don't want to usually because it's uncomfortable if they're uncomfortable feelings. And then can we use language that really is about the body, that isn't mixed up with those kind of evaluations of what we think people are doing to us, rejecting us, betraying us, manipulating us, being unfair. I feel like you're being unfair. I feel that you're just being really rude and disrespectful, right? So again, we can use the word feel, but then follow it with kind of a story of meaning that we're creating about it. And often that meaning is imbued with some kind of wrongness if something is happening we don't like. So that's feeling. So can we really focus on feeling in a way that's really about the body? And then need is about universality. It's getting to the universal. And in terms of awareness, for me, it's like being aware of our own awareness and how that is, our consciousness is vast and beyond just our own individual sense of self, that there's a much greater whole to be part of. So as you study the environment, the ecosystems, right, to see the whole of life, the whole of our experience of the world, of reality, of life itself. So for me, need is getting at that universal level. Again, where we have that commonality, where we're all connected to the same humanity. We're all part of the same life on this planet. So we can go there with our attention, I find. We can feel that kind of life energy inside the body. We can kind of be aware of an open, spacious awareness. And then with language, we can, sorry for the background noise for a second. With language, we can go to what's universal. Hold on. I'm in the room in the house where there's a printer, unfortunately. And my son probably is printing out something. So, a little mindful moment. So, need can also be language, right? How we're using language to connect to that universal. So the language of our universal needs, our human needs. Abraham Maslow made that very, pretty well known with his pyramid of needs. But really, it's just these different qualities that are universal that we all share. We all want this, at a certain level, we all want the same things, everyone, everywhere, all over the planet. and in some ways every life form. So like needs for safety and sustenance, needs for love and connection, for autonomy, respect, community, right? Those kind of words that point us to where we all share the sameness of what we care about, what we want, what we need to survive and thrive. Yeah. So to be able to have a language of that separate from the specifics. So the key differentiation here is needs versus strategies or wants or particular things. The form of things, kind of the needs are the formless. Yeah? So kind of being able to distinguish that. Often we mix up, I need you to be a certain way, which then creates conflict often, or resistance or something. It can disconnect us, right? If we mix up these needs with what we would like to meet the needs and who we would like to, then if we get that too mixed up, it tends to interfere with the connection, or it can. And so how to keep it really separate, what we need from these specific person, place, thing. You know? So that's need. Request. So once we get to consciousness of this level of universality and the language of our needs, we can ask ourselves and others, like, what would I like? What would I like to meet these needs? What would I like to ask of myself? What would I like to ask of others? And what are others asking for? Can I hear that in what they're saying? So this getting specific, when we've gone to the formless and universal of needs, to get back down to the concrete, the very specific, what would we like concretely to meet these needs? Yeah. And it's a place then we can connect in these universal needs, and then we can work together to come up with these different strategies and requests and agreements to meet our needs. So that's observation, feeling, need, request, OFNR. It's the acronym, a little shorthand for that. So I'd like to bring up Eunice first and just take you through. It'll help you all if you see an example of it. So the way I like to give the example is to kind of coach someone through these 4 components. And these components both are, if you think of a spotlight, you can shine it on yourself, like what's going on in me in terms of observation, feeling, need, request about something. And then if others are involved in some situation, we could sort of shift that spotlight and use the same 4 components to try to understand and connect with what's happening in other people. Right? Okay, so Eunice. Can we bring Eunice up?
John, hi, this is Lauren. Just very quickly, we had a couple of questions that came in via chat. Yeah. So before you went on to Eunice, these may actually be answered in the process of working with Eunice, but I wanted to go ahead and put these questions to you. Sure. And for those of you who are on, if you didn't already open your chat window, just know that we've got you all muted because there are so many participants on the call, but we definitely welcome questions for John via the chat window. So go ahead and feel free to use that here in Zoom. So the first question actually came from Shannon, and Shannon, we're going to be trying to get to your emailed question actually a little bit later. We're hoping to get to that, but Shannon asked a good question. When you were talking about observation, you made a couple of comments about how we shouldn't put it into words, sort of observing, you know, thinking that you're feeling something when it's actually not being felt. It's an observation about how your body's reacting. But could you give a couple examples of how you would put observation into language, or put into language the observations you're having?
Yes, I'll do that with Eunice. I'm sure that will come up.
Okay, perfect. And then Lauren Howe also asked where our sense of intuition fits into these components.
Intuition. Okay, let me see how that might emerge. And if will you remind me about that one? If I don't answer it as I'm working with Eunice, would you see if you can track me coming back to that? But I'm also thinking that may come out naturally as Eunice and I work together.
Great. All right. Sounds good. Eunice, you're unmuted. Could you go ahead and just give us a test and see if we can hear you?
Should I talk
Great.
on the phone or put my phone down?
Whatever you're doing right now is working perfectly.
Okay, I'm getting an echo on my end though.
Go ahead and put your speakers on mute. I think
yeah,
probably
the
you're
video.
picking up. I'll
the
loop.
video
Yep, go ahead and put your laptop on mute.
on mute. Yes. So try that now. Speak
Now let's
again.
try. Can we hear you okay?
Oh,
Oops,
no.
should put Zoom on mute. Yeah, go ahead and unclick that. Oh, I think you muted your phone. Let's try again. I've got you unmuted on your phone. There we go.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Okay, hello.
Hi, Eunice. Thank you so much for being willing to do a little demonstration with me. I really appreciate kind of putting yourself out there a little bit, and don't know if that's scary for you or not, but I would appreciate it.
Oh, it's going to be helpful, I think.
Okay. So you did write a bit about, I did read what you wrote about the situation, but let's just, let's just go right into it. And then you can, as you talk about it, others will get the sense of what it is. And
Sure.
I'm just gonna walk you through those 4 components. First for yourself, and then maybe a little bit for others. But if we start with observation, and I'm going to go through it in a very methodical way for the sake of demonstration. In other contexts, it's very, very fluid, right? And finding natural language for this, but I just wanted to really demonstrate these components to do it in a kind of orderly way. So observation. So maybe you could talk, there's a situation you're thinking of that happened to you, and maybe you could say a few things. See if you can say a few things that just were said or that you observed people doing. I think it was at a meeting you were at. Sure. And also maybe, and what you notice about even now looking back, or what's there now in terms of your thoughts, how you're judging and evaluating the situation, the people and whatnot. So
okay.
Just start with that level of kind of what do you notice in your mind as you think back on this time, and what are you perceiving? What are you thinking?
Yeah, and I will try to keep it short. I'm a professor at a small liberal arts college. I teach both anthropology and environmental studies, and my anthropology group of 5 people was having a meeting. They wanted to transform a very small space into a workspace for students, and it was a very kind of cramped room with a very small window. And on so many levels, I feel like students are already spending too much time behind computers. Anyway, but there was a lot of momentum to this meeting. There was a lot of enthusiasm amongst my colleagues that we had to spend budget money to get the latest new technology, but we weren't even clear why we would need such technology, but we just had to spend the money or the money would be gone. And I just didn't like the idea of sending students to some small cramped room to do more work. I want to bring students outside and have field experiences, and I want to transform education and be visionary and mindful and not put them behind more computers. But anyway, the meeting started going.
Can I ask you about
just
a little bit about, just to zero in on, so you're at this meeting, you're talking about what to do in this space, and you're hearing people talk about their ideas of what to do with this space, right?
Right.
So that's one of the things you're observing, what people are saying about their ideas of what to do. Yeah. And is there anything else that you're hearing or seeing in people's body language, like maybe in relation to what you're saying or doing, but just anything else that's like kind of difficult for you, right? Because a lot of things we can focus on, a lot of things you were perceiving throughout the meeting, but if you kind of zero in on some things that were kind of difficult, you notice were kind of triggering you into a reaction. What were you hearing and seeing?
Yeah, well, I think
ideas.
Other people in the room were very animated. They were very free with their body language, and I was feeling very cramped. Like there was something in my chest or throat that couldn't come out.
So in terms of your feelings in your body, the sensation in your chest, your throat. Okay. Now anything else so you saw their body language, the way they're moving and kind of this animation that, so I would say like the animated would be kind of like how you're evaluating their body language, like it was animated. And so you were seeing this way they were moving and the way they were talking, and then what they were talking about in terms of their ideas. Anything else
Yeah.
that you saw or you heard that was like difficult for you?
Yeah, as they were debating what kind of technology to buy, one of the professors chimed in, "Oh, I noticed all of our students use Macintosh."
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that as a very elitist comment, and because I see Macintosh as a more expensive product, but I didn't want to, I didn't even like the idea of any new technology, but I felt like, yeah, that sort of triggered me. Like,
Okay.
oh, I noticed all our students using Macintosh. Maybe we should buy some Macs for this room.
Yeah. Okay. Let's use that moment. There are a lot of different things were going on, but just for the sake of the example, it's just even focus in on that. So you heard him say this thing about let's get Macs for this space, right? And then
Yeah.
then what I heard is, so that was what you observed, right? Him saying what he said, and there's a certain way he probably said it, like a tone of his voice and the look on his face and stuff, right? And then there's like what you thought about it, right? So you thought this is elitist. This sounds kind of elitist to me, right? What else? So now you're just verbalizing an observation of your mind, how your mind is evaluating this, how your mind is judging these words about why not, let's get them all Macs, right? So what else? Elitist, anything else that your mind was kind of judging, evaluating?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're not thinking about the bigger picture of e-waste or about where all the components to computers come from, coltan mining. I mean, there's a real kind of social environmental justice.
Yeah. So they're not
feeling
thinking
within
about
me.
these things. Like they're
Yeah,
they're just being oblivious or ignorant. They're not thinking about these really important environmental consequences.
yeah, and
Yeah.
they might know about them, but the momentum was we have to spend this money or we'll lose it, and it seemed
Yes.
very not mindful to me.
Not mindful. Yeah. So you're, again, just the distinction, and maybe let me just kind of almost do a little guided meditation with you just in this moment. So just as you're looking at the memory of this scene in your mind, right? The meeting and this moment where there's this conversation about getting Macs, and see if you just kind of seeing like in slow motion, like you're watching a movie, hearing the words and seeing the person talking, and then also seeing these thoughts of, this is elitist, not mindful, not aware of the environmental impacts, and maybe you might want you might have other judgments, or maybe not, but there could be things like, oh, these people are so clueless, they're such idiots sometimes, I don't know, but the mind does that too, right? We can have harsh judgments, or we can just be like you're saying, right? So maybe just noticing that, just you're seeing that in your mind right now at these two levels, what happened, and then noticing how you're thinking about it, right?
Yeah.
And how is that just in this moment, just to kind of take that step back a little bit, and just be sort of talking to yourself and me out loud about this, and keeping it distinct, kind of, oh, this is what he said and this is what my mind said about it. How's that, to kind of just see it that way, to kind of observe that right now, talk about it in that way,
Yeah. This is what it was. She said.
Oh, she.
And then
Okay.
it's okay. I felt like I was suppressing my thoughts for a long time, and the more she said about our students using Macs, then came the eruption. The eruption was just, are we branding our students by
So
by
that
saying they
thought,
use Macs?
are we branding our students? Yeah. Okay.
But it didn't sound very nice. Like when I think about it, there was so much pressure behind that feeling
In you.
that I think it really came out as like I was attacking her.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So just in this moment with me, you're thinking back on that. and just seeing in your mind, right, what she said, and then are we branding them? Is this seems elitist? And then there's like observing what you said, right? Then you said some things to her about this, right? So now let's go from that observation, right? Just observing and putting that words to what you're observing even now as you look back. Going into your body, you said there's that feeling of kind of constriction or pressure in your throat, in your chest. What else do you notice when you go back to this moment that you felt this surge in you?
Yeah. Well, that I didn't belong and that my ideas wouldn't be accepted. They would be seen as extreme because of the way I was presenting them. Like, sort of I have a lack of finesse because I feel so on the outside of what the institution is trying to do, or the structures of the institution.
Okay. Can I let me slow you down there a little bit? So more what I hear in that is just like kind of more thoughts, more what the mind is trying to do to understand what's going on. Yeah. And let me just gently point you back towards, if you're willing, as you notice those thoughts about what all this means, what are you feeling in your body? Like even right now, as you think back on this moment, what else, anything else? There's a sensation in your throat and in your chest and anything else right now in your body. If you really focus in on your body.
It's like a burning, kind of a warmth burning from my diaphragm up through my chest, and my throat still feels a little constricted.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and my ears are warm.
Okay. So if it's okay with you, just allow yourself to feel that. Feel your body with some warmth and some care, like for these difficult feelings in you right now, right? So you just kind of hold that in your attention with yourself, with your body. And as you just sort of try to breathe into that, relax into that a little bit of just letting the sensations sort of be there, be present with them, with your attention. Now, is there any words for emotion? So you've been giving some physical sensation words. Are there any emotion words like angry or frightened or really worried and concerned, or things like that? Any emotion words that you would add?
The first word that comes up, and I don't know if it's an emotion word, but it's I'm right. Like I don't want to let my ego get the better of me. But I think it's embarrassment.
Okay. Yeah. I'd call that a feeling in the body, the feeling of embarrassment in the body. But then the thought was something like, well, I think I'm right and I don't want to be in my ego, but right. So that's kind of the thinking side of it. And then shifting to the more body experience of embarrassment, right? The emotional quality of embarrassment. So just take a moment and we can kind of choose, kind of where we focus our attention on the thinking there or more towards the body, and then the language that goes with the body. So as you talk about embarrassment and the sensation from your belly up into your chest and throat, and just, if you can, just sort of keep gently bringing your attention back. You're talking to yourself, because we can talk to ourselves inside, right? How do we talk to ourselves about our experience, right? Talking about these sensations, these emotions that are really just about what the body's doing versus how your mind is trying to talk about what's going on out there in the world. Does that make sense?
Yeah, now it's kind of moving to being sad.
Sadness. Yeah. Okay. So now if it's okay with you, we're going a little fast because demonstration, but from that sense of sadness and embarrassment and these other sensations, connecting that with your human needs. So basically just asking yourself, as I think these thoughts and I have these feelings in my body, what's really important to me that matters to all humans all over the planet? What comes to you?
Being accepted.
Acceptance. Yeah, acceptance for what you have to say, and And yeah, acceptance. What else?
Feeling safe.
Safety. Yeah, feeling safe, accepted. Any other words come to you?
Like, I don't know if, sorry, I'm getting a little
That's
lost
okay.
in
No, that's
going
so
fast.
it's like you're trying to find it, right? Or the way I think you're inviting this language to come as I ask for these universal qualities. Yeah. And sometimes they come at their own pace and in their own ways, but it's sort of trying to find the language that's universal. Yeah. So you've talked about acceptance. We all humans want to feel accepted for who we are, and maybe to be seen and valued for what we have to say, and the sense
Yeah, I
of
think it's
safety.
the care. Like,
Care.
I want
Care.
people, I don't know if it's universal, but like to recognize that my position comes out of care for the
Care. Yeah.
world and the pain of others.
Yeah. So care for the world, the pain of others, to be seen, to be understood, for the care. Yeah. And to share that care is shared. Yeah. So as we get to this language of needs, and let me also just invite you to, if it makes sense, to kind of drop even under the physical sensations and emotions to the kind of just a sense of aliveness in the body, like the life energy that animates us. See if you just kind of feel into that level of the body as you say these words to yourself, these need words, this language of needs, human, universal, even beyond
My
human, but
heart
just,
just opens up. I mean, I feel
yeah,
much more compassionate for myself, and
yeah,
just as a place to start, like I just want to rest with myself and that feeling
yeah,
for a little while.
yeah, 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 yeah,
That
exactly.
I'm good. I'm a good person, and
Mm.
so that goodness comes from the heart.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly it. You got to that place, yeah? So from that place, just asking yourself the question, and maybe nothing comes at the moment, but is there a request? Is there a request now, even in this moment, which could be like, oh yeah, if I'm in a similar situation, what I might do differently. But whatever comes, just sort of inviting, is there a request of yourself or something you might want to ask of others now or
Yeah,
at a similar kind of moment? Does any request come to you?
yeah. But then I'm also sad because I don't know if it can be met.
Well, that's
But I
that's
want us all
okay.
just to
Just what do you
slow
notice?
down
What did the
meetings.
mind deliver to you when you asked?
Yeah.
What came?
Yeah, well, I'm just asking that in meetings we all just check in with each other
Mm,
emotionally before we
mm,
proceed with a meeting. And
mm.
I think that would make meetings go a lot better.
Yeah. Okay. So that's very specific idea of something you could ask for, and you might not get a yes. And then here's the distinction between request and demand. Yeah. So that's the key
Yeah,
differentiation of request.
yeah.
Sometimes we get attached to our requests in a way they turn into like, we got to get it to be a certain way, or other people relate that way to what they ask us for, right? As a kind of demand energy. And what can really, I think, and that can block the connection and create some resistance, right? So if you can continue to come back to these needs and this feeling of this goodness inside that you're connected to, and then holding the request as just one possibility of meeting these needs. Maybe you feel particularly, enjoying this possibility, this way that you could check in emotionally. But the
Mhm.
idea that they're infinite in a sense, ideas or possibilities for meeting these needs. And I visually, or kind of experientially, I like to tie this with a kind of being open with our attention, like letting our attention be like wide and open, and then these ideas just kind of come in and get more concrete. So in this open expanse of possibility, there are many ways to meet our needs. And this is one way that came to you. It sounds like it's
Mhm.
quite a sweet image of how it could be. Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and we could, if we had time, we could go now focus on this person, this person that had the idea of the max, and like, oh yeah, what is she thinking when she says that? What's going on in her mind when she's talking about the max and getting that for everybody, and what she said, and how is she feeling? You know, is she excited? Is she nervous? And what needs, especially what needs is she trying to meet when she's saying these things that isn't meeting the needs for you?
Mm-hmm.
But the idea that because the needs that she's trying to meet are the same needs you have and I have and everybody in this call has and everybody in the world has, we can connect to people even when they're thinking and communicating and acting in ways that are very hard for us. We can still connect to the human being behind that, behind the thoughts and the strategies. And this, oh, she's trying to meet some needs too. Maybe in a way I'd prefer different, but
Yeah.
you know, at that level we can connect. We don't have a conflict there because we all have the same needs we're trying to meet. Yeah. So
Yeah.
given the time, I don't know, maybe why don't you just make one guess at a need? What's one need, even though you don't necessarily agree with her strategies, one need she might be trying to meet by saying that what she said that you found difficult?
Yeah, I think she's also trying to be accepted. I mean, she's trying to put forth an idea to create change and provide something new for students. She's trying to care for students.
Yeah, care.
These are their
A
needs.
strategy to care in this particular way. So yeah, since maybe you're both really deeply wanting to care for the students and just very different ideas about how to do it. But how does that feel to kind of connect to that level of her humanity shared with you and both of you wanting to care?
Oh, it feels great. I mean, it feels full of possibilities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Wow, Eunice, how is it to go through this together? How was that as a kind of the whole process together?
It's,
How was that?
yeah, it's really nice. I mean, it helped me notice things I hadn't noticed before, and it helped me move through feelings of inadequacy to feelings of possibility. Thank you.
Thank you. I really enjoyed how you did that and uh, being able to work together like this. So thank you so much. And again, for just being willing to share that with the group. My guess is there's a huge contribution to see it played out in the way that you did. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, it seems so petty in some ways, but it's
Ah,
also like so
but look at the
important because I think
needs.
that's yeah,
Yeah, look what you got to that we can all relate
yeah,
to, this care and acceptance and safety, and right, those are no small things. And um, so yeah, thank you so much.
yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Um, so then speaking back out to the whole group again, maybe about intuition, that for me, the intuition comes in and like basically we're asking the unconscious. The way I like to think of intuition is we're in dialogue with the unconscious. So it's this relationship between the unconscious and conscious awareness and what emerges into conscious awareness. And so when we invite what kind of feelings, what words for feelings are there, and what words for needs and requests and strategies, if we're asking this deep mystery of the unconscious to kind of give us some kind of response, that to me is intuition. And we're like listening deeply to what our bodies are saying, to what's popping into the mind from who knows where. Yeah, so that's how I kind of concretely in the context of this process that I just went through, and these components, that's a kind of a way to listen to our intuitive deep knowing, to get in touch with um, what we're observing and feeling and needing and wanting. Yeah. All right. So Lauren, back to you in terms of any burning questions before I go to the next, or comments, maybe people commenting.
So we do have a few questions that came up. I'm going to ask them slightly out of order. So bear with me, everyone who goes to the question. So Jennifer O'Leary, who's on, posted and asked, said that she'd be interested in how to use these techniques when you're actively engaged in a situation where you're also trying to listen to others. How do you sort of prevent overload, or is it an overload to be both looking internally and externally at the same time?
Yeah, that's the art. I get there's probably some science to that too, science and art of how to be present within ourselves and present with others. And, whether that's just going back and forth, or I like to sometimes think we can kind of expand the bubble of our awareness from just being aware of our own mind and body to just expanding the bubble to include the other and sort of being aware of both of us at the same time. So then awareness is more, it's not so localized, and it's just not just my awareness, but it's just this being aware and aware of this mind and body and the other mind and body, and then I'm just aware of both. So you can think of it in different ways. But yeah, that's takes a lot of practice. So everything I'm sharing with y'all takes practice. It's kind of a rewiring of the brain, the nervous system to focus attention differently, to use language differently. So it takes practice, but it definitely is a very learnable, doable set of skills. And I'm just giving you kind of a basic foundation level of it. But what I'm going to do next with you all, I'll see if there's anything else, Lauren, that you want to say. But just to give a heads up or a little preview, the next couple things I want to cover in our time that is rapidly evaporating is how do you deal with an intensity moment? So in the moment of a difficult interaction, how do you take some of this and apply it there? And then lastly, how do you bring this into conversation? So what I just did with Eunice is like, how do you basically, when you're in conversation with yourself about your own experience and maybe wondering or trying to understand other people's experience kind of internally. And then what about when you're in conversation with another person, how do you bring in these elements, but in a way that sounds natural and fluid and organic and doesn't sound stilted or techniquey or kind of awkward, that it can flow in a natural way. So I'll try to cover all that in our remaining 35 minutes, but let me see you, Lauren, is there anything else you want me to know about for right now?
No, I think the other questions actually we can hold for a little bit, because I think one of the questions you're actually going to get to with Jeremy, and then another one is a follow-up for the end of the session. So thanks.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So here I want to I'm going to take a moment to see. I'm going to try to do this. So in addition to Jeremy, there were a couple other people that raised some challenging type situations. And I thought, Shannon, something that you said, or you talked about a situation that I thought might be good for what I want to talk about as a self-connection practice and an intensity practice, kind of dealing with intensity. So just want to see if
Shannon, I just unmuted you. She is here, and I just unmuted you, Shannon.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I can't see Shannon yet, but there's Shannon. Hi, Shannon.
Hi.
Yeah, so we don't have much time to get into your situation. Maybe could you just say in as few words as you could try to an observation of the thing that you wrote about this kind of follow-up conversation you had with these two people from I forgot now what but anyways, you can speak, but just like really zeroing in on a statement. If you just actually picked one conversation of these two follow-up that you said kind of went south on you,
Mm-hmm.
that maybe just one statement of what started to turn into a difficult moment, like a heated moment or a triggering kind of this energy coming at you that was like kind of difficult to deal with. Are you willing to just try to kind of capture what was said and how was it said? And if you want a little bit of context there, but kind of getting
What was said from me?
No, to you. Like when, like maybe you could, you tried to have a conversation. Maybe you could say the conversation you tried to have, but then with one of them anyways, what was it that started to come back at you that was difficult for you to deal with? There was like an intensity moment of having some energy come at you that was hard to deal with.
Yeah. What came back was, that's unfair.
That's unfair.
Who's asking me to do that? I'm just trying to do the right thing. I think people will benefit from what I'm doing.
This is what's being said to you, right?
That's what's being said to me, right? I don't
Yeah.
think I've done anything wrong.
I haven't done anything wrong. And
This
the
is unfair.
context I think was in a WhatsApp channel and some things that were being communicated. And you were trying to have a little follow-up conversation with these two people, right? About, yeah, what do we want to, how do we want to be on this WhatsApp chat? And this was the kind of response you started to get when you were trying to have that conversation, right? And so is some of these words, and then there was like some intensity of the emotion, my guess, right? Like a sense of, there was like a lot of energy behind some of these words that were coming to you, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we could call anger, or I think you said like maybe a sense of, you interpreted a kind of defensive-ness, right? But that kind of energy, right?
Yeah, anger, frustration,
Frustration, yeah.
sense of, I think from this one person, a sense of, I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Are you
why are you what criticizing me, or what was the word?
blocking?
Blocking.
Why are you blocking me?
Why are you blocking? Yes. Okay. So this, I want to give a little, a way you can take the not just you, Shannon, but and everybody. You can take observation, feeling, need, request, and turn it into kind of almost like a mindfulness practice, like something you can do really quickly. That's not so much about language. It's more just something you do with your attention, but it's just a version of the OFNR. So it's basically, let me just walk you through the self-connection practice, and then we'll apply it to this moment of the conversation where it started to turn and you started to hear these things and hear this frustration and anger coming to you, okay? So before we go there though, kind of just clear your mind and so it's breath, body, need is the self-connection practice. Breath, body, need. So it's a little shorthand to kind of drop into a place of some centeredness when we notice that we're in a, not feeling that way. But for now, just almost like we're just going to go into a little guided meditation together for a moment. So just focus on your breath, and everybody listening can do the same thing. You focus on your breath. So just by shifting attention to the breath, that's observing, right? Observing your breath going in and out, yeah? And as you observe your breath, you can observe anything your mind is doing right now, anything you're perceiving or thinking. You can just watch, observe the mind do it right now, just in this moment as you're hearing my words. Just there might be some thoughts that come and go. You're hearing the tone of my voice and the words and whatever else you're seeing in your mind. But the main thing, just keep coming back to the breath, observing the breath go in and out. And then dropping into the body. Just feeling the body. Don't worry about putting words. Just feel whatever sensations you notice. And just be present in just resting attention, dropping attention down into the body and just feeling whatever you feel. And then from body and feeling the body to need. And in this, as a self-connection practice, I like to have just one core need you can practice with a bit. And you can change it as often as you want. But so for this moment, is there a core, like a need that transcends these two conversations you had and any particular situation, but like a need in general, a word that of a universal need that you really like, that really makes you feel good, that really connects you to what you value and care about, like love or safety or respect or so.
Appreciated for that.
Appreciation.
It's appreciation.
Appreciation. Wonderful. So appreciation. So just say that word to yourself silently a few times, slowly. Appreciation. And then as I did with Eunice, see if you can feel that life energy in the body, that kind of aliveness, sort of a subtle quality of just kind of feeling that animating quality of the body. So as feeling that, saying this one need to yourself, appreciation. And as you say that word, that sense of how just generally important that need is for you and how important it is for every human, everywhere. We all want to feel appreciated, and you just feeling that sense of connection to the whole of humanity and to yourself through appreciation. Okay. All right. So how's that? You got that? Breath, body, need?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now I'm just going to walk you through this kind of quick because I want to move to the last thing. But so if you put yourself back into this moment, right? Take one of the calls that you're on with one of these two people, and this moment is starting to happen, right? That you've expressed some of your concerns or your requests or what and then you're starting to get the reaction. Yeah, what you'd interpret as frustration, anger, you're hearing these words that you said. So just imagine that's occurring right now or remembering. And then my guess is even just a flicker, your body's reacting, the fight or flight system kicks in. Yeah, something tenses in your body. You start to notice your mind and your body going into a more kind of protective mode or some reaction, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just take a moment to notice that and then go to breath. So just shift attention to your breath. And follow your breath and down into your body. Just feel your body. Feel whatever reaction that is. Just let yourself feel it, whatever, just let it be and take its course and just be present in a compassionate, gentle way with whatever's happening. So breath, body, and then go to that need. Appreciation. Even if that's not the exact need for this situation, just starting with that. Just saying that need to yourself. Feeling the aliveness, the energy in the body. I think of it, the universal life energy. I like to imagine that energy is the same ultimately in everything, everyone. So we're part of that. Feeling that, saying appreciation, noticing if there's a kind of settling, calming to your system. And then imagine asking yourself some version of this question. Can I hear a please in this? Can I hear this person saying they just have some needs they want to be met? They're just saying OFNR. They're just communicating something they perceived, something they're feeling, some needs that they have, some requests that they have to meet those needs. That a shorthand to just get to the essence of that is just, can I hear them saying please for some needs of theirs they want met? That all this difficult communication and emotion and coming at me, can I remind myself to look underneath it, just to hear feelings and needs, just to hear a request, just to hear the pleas? Someone in some pain, can I hear this as someone in some pain, just asking for their needs to be met, asking for a please? Yeah. So then we can cycle back through, coming back to yourself, breath, body, need. Can I hear the please again? And then from there, what do I choose as my response? What do I choose? How would I like to respond to this? And then that can come from this sort of intuitive, deeper place and less of a reactive place. So this is something you can do in the moment if you practice. A lot of times we'll forget, so we can practice afterwards and practice for the next time. But to me, it's one of the most useful things I've ever learned in this approach, is this noticing that getting triggered, having this quick version of OFNR, breath, body, need, to drop into, remembering to can I just focus and hear the please in the other person? And then what do I consciously choose to respond? How do I want to respond that might really create what I want here? Yeah. So that's a kind of practical, in a heated moment, not easy to do, takes a lot of practice, but it's possible. So before we switch, anything you want to say? I did that super fast with you, but anything you noticed about me guiding you through that? What happened for you, Shannon?
Yeah, I mean, I think some ideas came up at the end of how to be reconnected, but I realized that to be effective at this, as you were saying earlier, I think it's practice, but I think that I had some other pent-up emotions that I probably need to spend some time on discharging first, because there were layers, and I think in that moment, a bunch of other things kind of came up, and if I would have felt it, and if I would have been, I don't know, in some very specific situation, I could have found myself just totally tearing up.
Yeah.
So I think I can see that to be good at this, you really need to spend some time with yourself.
Yeah, or other people. I like to think I call it empathic community. So a community of people you can talk to that know how to support this way of focusing attention and language, that then it can, like I did with Eunice, right? Kind of, we were together moving through those pieces, and you could do we call that self-empathy, right? So we can focus empathy towards ourself with OFNR. We can focus empathy towards empathy for other with OFNR, right? And we can do that just to prepare ourselves. If we know we're going to be going into a difficult situation, we can use that self-empathy to, as you just said, to get kind of ready for that. And then you're less likely to be triggered in the same way. It could still happen, of course, but you've built up this kind of resilience and centeredness that it's easier to come back more quickly to the connection that you want to have, right? Connection with yourself, connection with that other person, right? So yeah, that's what you can do before. And then what we just did is something you can do during, if you notice you're still getting triggered by right, which probably most of us would be. Our nervous system's very highly attuned to looking for danger and then reacting. So it's going to happen. And then how do we just be with that and respond consciously, right? So thank you so much, Shannon, for coming, doing this very quick version, and sharing another experience with people to learn from. So thank you very much. Okay, so in a moment, well, I'll check in with Lauren and then we'll go to Jeremy. But maybe let's just take a couple breaths together, everybody. That's a lot I'm covering with you and the time that we have. Yeah. So these little pause moments I find helps me kind of keep coming back to my center. And then we can all kind of feel, I think there's a quality of connection that happens in the silence, in the pauses. Connection with ourselves, connection with others. If we move too fast, we lose the connection, we lose presence. And sometimes we don't want to slow down, or the mind doesn't want to slow down. The mind, some of us have very quick, agile minds, and we don't like to slow down. The mind doesn't want to do that. It gets uncomfortable, I think. So what I think I'm asking you all to do some things that might be uncomfortable at times too. The slowing down, the shifting of focus. And what I want to do with Jeremy, I will check in with you, Lauren, in a second, but when I moved with Jeremy, it's a kind of slowing down in conversation. that you can do. You don't have to, but bringing that spacious quality to our conversations that really feeds and nurtures us, I find. But Lauren, first checking with you, anything burning to let me know about or ask for people?
Nothing burning. We have a few questions I'll hold till you're done with Jeremy.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, Jeremy, are you ready? If you can
yes, I am ready.
Yeah, say something again so I can get your main image on the screen here.
I'm looking forward to working through the situation I've been thinking about.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming up to do this with me. Again, I don't know if that's scary for you or not, but I just really appreciate you helping me share this material with the group. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well.
So let me just give a little overview of what I'd like to do together. So there's another, I call it like another process, or really it's just an app, like an application of the OFNR. Now, instead of the self-connection of breath, body, need, this is, we call it elements of empathy in our training. And that has these 4 elements that you can kind of basically distill into 3. So the 3 elements. So if Jeremy, you and I are going to be having a conversation where, if it's okay with you, I'd like you to speak about the situation that you wrote about. I'll be the listener. Now, for me in conversation, you know, we're taking turns a lot. We're going back and forth, who's speaking, who's listening. But I find a normal conversation that it's like almost like both people are speaking, you know, or you're waiting your turn to speak, but you know, to have this kind of consciousness of, in any given moment, there's the person speaking and then there's the person listening. And so on either side of that, for me, there are these elements of empathy. And what we create together as speaker and listener is this connection of empathy between us. Yeah. So the elements of empathy are: presence is the first one. Presence meaning whether I'm the listener being present with you, Jeremy, or you as the speaker being just present with me, right? We can have different degrees of presence as we're speaking and talking to people, right? We can be kind of looking away and totally off in our, you know, or we can really be really present with the person while we're speaking, right? So presence, to me, it's not about words or language. Presence in the sense of our attention, the quality of our attentiveness, you know? So presence is a very important quality of what creates connection between us as we're speaking and listening. Then the second element, understanding. So that's really just, so if I'm the listener, trying to see if I'm hearing and understanding you separate from agreement or disagreement. And can I just hear you and understand? And do you feel heard and understood by me? Right? That's a big, important part of connection, right? Just understanding. And if you're on the speaker side, you could try to speak in a way that helps me understand and hear you without having to agree with you, and just be like inviting me to just see your perspective, to see your point of view, right? How you're thinking and feeling about something, right? So you can have that on your side, I have it on mine. And then the third component, needs. So we've talked about needs and really making sure we get down to what those needs are as we're talking. You know, if I'm listening, can I listen for needs at some point? Really try to see if I'm getting what the needs are in you that are so important. And then if you're speaking, can you also be conscious of, oh yeah, so I'm talking about all this. What am I really, what's this really about for me at that human universal level? Right? And the fourth aspect is this, you know, especially on the listening side, it can be out loud. I can reflect out loud what I'm hearing you say, or I can just do it silently. I can just be silently listening to you speaking. So those are the elements of empathy that kind of take OFNR and turn it into something we can kind of more easily use as we're speaking and listening with each other. So how's that sound, Jeremy? I'll do most of the work, but I'll just kind of invite you to just do your best as you're speaking to pay attention to those things. Sound good?
That sounds good. Sorry, I'm just gonna periodically mute myself because there's a loud leaf blower outside.
Okay, no problem. All right, so let's just, and people, you can use these elements of empathy just in any moment you're talking to somebody. And I really like what, if sometimes you can say, oh, can we really have a conversation where we take turns really listening to each other. So I really like inviting that with at least certain people I'm talking to, create a little subtle structure to the conversation that just drops us, any kind of ritual can drop us into a depth that's very nourishing. So let's say, Jeremy, that we kind of have this agreement. We're going to take turns. In this case, you're going to have the turn of speaking, me listening. And as we just take a few breaths first, maybe to integrate the self-connection. So I just invite you to kind of clear your mind for the moment. Focus on your breath, and all of us on our breath. Feel the body. And go to a core need, or just feel the kind of the energy, the aliveness, that kind of universal energy we could tap into in the body. So just dropping in to that connection inside, that presence within. So presence within through the self-connection. And then let's just start, Jeremy, you and I, just being present with each other, me listening with presence, you trying to speak with some presence. And you can be kind of listening to the tone of your own voice and how the words are sort of emerging for you as you're talking. And then just let the words come, like talking to me. What do you want to say about this situation that happened to you, and just see what words come to you in this moment. So we'll just take a little bit, just being in presence together, you speaking, me listening, and then we'll go to the other elements. But just say what comes to you in this moment to share.
All right. So this situation was a learning experience for me, and also a very highly charged emotional experience for me, but it was also a series of events that happened over the course of several weeks. And so what happened is I was involved in student protests at my graduate school at MIT, and these protests were in response to the MIT administration releasing a climate action plan that we thought was very inadequate. And in particular, we were trying to convince the administration to divest the endowment from fossil fuels. And when they announced they wouldn't be doing that, started a sit-in, and we initiated a series of discussions with the administration, with one representative in particular, to have conversations about how we might be able to work out our differences. And so there were a lot of differences, but also some common ground that we were trying to reconcile. But we all felt very strongly on both sides about what the right course of action was. And because the decisions related to what would happen over the next 5 years in terms of climate action across the entire institute, the stakes felt very real and very high. And so there were a lot of emotions involved and a lot of frustration. Just to give you a sense of sort of the level of frustration, I think we all tried very hard in the meetings to be careful with our words and to try to listen. But after the meetings, my fellow students and I, there were usually about 4 or 5 of us in those meetings, would have take an hour to basically vent to each other and debrief to express how we really felt about what was happening in the room when the negotiating was happening. So I think some of these techniques would have really come in handy at the time.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like pretty intense, high stakes and intense emotions. So yeah. So now shifting from just being me as the listener, just being with you with my attention and just taking in your words and your body language. Now I'd like to see if you'd like me to say back what I'm hearing. And I'd like to. Are you okay with that?
Yes, please.
All right. So I probably won't get it exactly right. I want you to clarify, but I'll just let you know kind of the essence of what I heard. So it sounded like a series of things occurred over time around this, what action to take related to the fossil fuel, to climate measures that could be enacted on campus? Or,
yeah, we focused on divestment, but there were other aspects that we focused on too, like emissions reductions on campus, things related to funding.
So these are different topics that came up that you were going to try to negotiating what to do about them. Yeah. And it sounds like that some thinking of you and your colleagues was like, this isn't going far enough. This isn't enough. And this is like, there's trying to like wiggle out and it's not going to be robust enough. Things like that, that it was just this deep kind of concern and is anger and frustration about, are people really seeing, what you all think really needs to be done to make a difference. So am I getting the essence of it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And yeah, so maybe now let me see if I can hear. So we've done a little understanding, me just saying what I understood and you feeling. Yeah. Is there anything I missed or anything that you want to say further just about the essence of what you want to be heard about right now about this, how difficult this, or, what was difficult about this?
Yeah, I think another aspect to the situation is that, I say now that we were negotiating with the administration, and I think that's an accurate term, but at the time, I don't think the administration would have admitted that that's what was happening, and we weren't even sure if it was really a negotiation or if it was, them being gracious and just hearing our thoughts as students. And so there was a power dynamic at play that we were trying to sort of understand on the fly. And as most of us were scientists and engineers who weren't trained as activists and didn't have much experience in that kind of negotiation environment.
Yeah, let me see if I'm getting the gist of it, and I'm just conscious of time too.
Sure.
So I'm doing it a little more abbreviated, but this last piece is something that there's awareness in you and your colleagues about this power dynamic and the administration and you as sort of protesting things that you wanted to be different from what you saw happening with these policies or ways that the administration was moving. And some sense like, are we being placated? are we really negotiating with them? Is that how they see it? Is like, so in terms of power and sort of the politics of things, there were that level was going on as well, kind of how you were being viewed perhaps, and what was it really a negotiation or not? Something like that. Yeah. Definitely. So that was part of the dynamic. Okay. So now how about we go to me as your listener, making some guesses of what needs of yours might be there. Yeah. I could also just ask you, but you might not know about what I mean by that. So I can, as a listener, I can make some guesses even. So I wonder if, well, you talked about power, and I wonder if, but it sounds like in the service of, I wonder if I need like a true openness, like real openness and care. That came up earlier in other conversations, but like a real openness and care for the impact on students and the environment and the world. Something about that. So if those words don't quite resonate, just say which ones do.
Yeah, I think openness definitely resonates. I think another thing that we were looking for is feeling heard.
Feeling heard.
And feeling acknowledged.
Acknowledged, yeah. Yeah, heard and acknowledged. Yep. Yeah. Okay. So I'm seeing where we are in time. What we could do if we had a little more time is I could say, okay, now as we get down into those needs, is there anything that comes to you you might want to do to meet those needs, like that comes to you now as you reflect on it? But because where we are on time, let's just kind of pause here. Let me just check in with you. How was that kind of to be the speaker and for me to listen this way and reflect back to you this way? How was that?
Yeah, it felt refreshing. It felt like we were able to come to a good understanding about the situation, which was
Mm-hmm.
a good step.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was kind of short, but the idea that on my side too, what I was trying to do is be present with you, and also just kind of keep the focus on you, just like keep hearing what your experience is and what you're saying, and then when I reflected back, to keep that on you rather than talking about me and what my reaction to what you're saying is, right? Could you feel that I was like really keeping the focus on you and your experience?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And there's something about that that kind of drops us into a depth there of you being able to really feel deeply heard and me being present with you in that. And then we could at some point switch, and then it'd be my turn, right? And you can listen to me. So that's the idea. And it can create that a richness of our interaction. So thank you so much, Jeremy. I want to have a few minutes to respond to other questions, but thank you for demonstrating the elements of empathy, talking about this important issue of negotiating with administrations and trying to. So we could have used you for any of the other ones as well. I know that I worked on with others because that all applies to the situation you brought forward. So thank you so much, Jeremy.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Lauren, we've got just a little bit of
Yes.
time here. What can we get to at the end here?
So I'm going to get to the questions in just a moment, but since we're just shy of the time and some people may need to bow out to go to other meetings, I do want to give people a chance to do that gracefully. And for those of you who can stay on for just a few more minutes, we will get to the questions. So I do want to say thank you to you, John, because I think we all learned a lot from this. And I did want to note that for those of you who registered early for this event, you received some handouts already, as well as links to some of John's materials. He has provided me with additional materials, and so I'll be sending all of those out again to everyone who registered or came to the webinar today. Just, I wanted to follow up and make sure that you're all aware that there are lots of materials to go around. Beyond the ones that you've already sent me, John, what would you recommend for people to pursue this? How, both materials or just sort of practice tips? What are some kinds of things that you think are useful?
Yeah, so like you said, a lot of materials that I'm providing, but in terms of follow-up kind of support to keep learning, in addition to that, if you go to my johnkinyon.com website, and on the resources tab there, you'll see different resources that you can, additional ones that you can get more kind of training and learning. If you want to learn from me, there's online courses that I do. There's a level 1 starting later this month. So on the menu, you'll see online programs that I do. There's an online community that like a private network community that I've created that I call Empathy and Mindfulness and Conversation, that you can join up to that. And at this time, I'm letting people just come in free to that. It's normally subscription, but that's just a space where I offer things. People can meet and practice together online, and I offer a lot of resources, kind of different things there in that sort of virtual community space, learning community space. So those are things you can do with me. You can see other resources of ways to get more connected to other people who teach this kind of work. So that's the place I'd recommend, in addition to the materials, to go to the website.
Super, thank you. And before we get to the last couple of questions, I did just want to say thank you again very much to Eunice and Shannon and Jeremy for being willing to not only pose their questions via email, but to really be willing to stand and be in front of the group and share, difficult emotions and challenges. So that was really appreciated. It's what the Switzer Network, thrives on, is sort of all of us being willing to step forward with our work and our challenges. But I do want to just say again that we really appreciate you all being there to do that for us today. To go back to a couple of questions, Catherine had asked if there's an equivalent of the faux feeling sheet that focuses on positive feelings.
Well, in that sheet, you'd see that what we're calling kind of the faux feeling language, where we kind of mix up thoughts and feelings into that languaging. You'll see there's different columns. So there's a column of sort of the emotions that go with that. And yeah, I guess most of those emotions would be like kind of when our needs are not being met, but okay. And then there's another handout that's just on feelings and needs sheets. And on those, half of the sheet is on feelings when our emotions, when our needs are getting met. And then the other half of that sheet is emotions and feelings when our needs are not being met, or we perceive it anyways. So that's a place you can go for language, both kinds of feelings, the ones we call positive and negative. I think all feelings are positive in the sense that they're our body communicating with us about what's happening outside and how our needs are getting affected by what we're perceiving, right? So those, that's another place, there's a place you can go for the feeling vocabulary words. Yeah.
Super, thanks. And Stuart, you're still on, and do you mind going ahead and unmuting yourself and asking your question? Because I'm not completely sure I understand it and I don't want to ask it incorrectly. So I'll unmute you. Can you hear me? Oh, you just muted yourself. Sorry, that was my bad. I'll unmute you again. We're playing mute, not mute here.
There we go.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sure. So the question I posed, which I kind of heard hints of in some of the examples, is this idea between outcomes, a place that people are trying to arrive at once they've figured out what they want, and solutions or strategies or approaches. Whereas the notion that human nature is to solve problems, and if you don't have the problem understood, then your solutions, it's in the engineering world, it's the perfect solution to the wrong problem. And I've encountered this a lot, is everybody just, we're going to do it this way. And you ask the question, why that way? And because it seems like it's not taking you towards this outcome, and get people to back up and say, where is we want to arrive at? And then how do we get there? And I heard hints of that in some of these talks. I want to kind of get your take on that.
Yeah, so I really like the question, and I'd say that you know, the way you described it to me maps on to getting to these needs, right? So that would be a way to talk about like the bigger vision of where we want to go. What needs are we trying to meet? What values at that kind of human level of what we all care about, right? That would be a way to talk about where we want to go, where we want to get to. Yeah. And but in a way that keeps things really wide open of possibility, because the needs are not about anything particular. It's just about these qualities. Right? So from that consciousness of that, we can then move into how do we meet them? What ideas and brainstorms and possibilities of taking action and working together to take that action. But that's how I would put it into what, you know, to the language you were talking about, would be getting to that universal kind of level of what we all want and care about.
And so,
Is that resonating?
Yeah, and I guess my question, so if you're in a room full of people and everyone wants to avoid conflict and is just throwing solutions on the table to an unclear need or set of needs, ways to redirect the conversation so that it brings you to the needs, so then you can begin working on solutions that have that might actually work.
So like what I did with Jeremy. So this listening, so if you're at a meeting and people are sort of talking and like in the way you're saying, that could really remember, oh yeah, I can just do some elements of empathy here and really, you know, really be present and listen, and then try to just say, oh, is this what you're saying? I'm trying to understand. And are these the qualities you're talking about? You don't have to use the word need, by the way, because some people react to that word. You know, you think it means needy or weak or whatever. But you know, you if you have the consciousness of what we're pointing to here, then you can just, like I did with Jeremy, just like try to reflect that back and like, am I hearing you at this understanding level? Am I getting you at this universal level? So it's a way to just kind of check, is message sent, message received, and we both get to kind of confirm that. If I can frame it as, oh, you're speaking, I'm listening, let me see if I can really connect to what you're saying, get clear on that. And I can do that with whoever in the room that, you know, has a lot of energy, say, about something, and make sure we're getting on the same page in that way. Not necessarily agreement, but to being heard and getting to what these universal qualities are. And then, how about we work together on sort of brainstorming how to meet these qualities, these needs.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and it takes practice. It takes practice how to do that, especially in a difficult moment. It takes a lot of practice.
Well, I get to try on Friday, so that's good.
Well, good. Yeah, you get to put it into practice right away. You could take all the things you could prepare, like we did with Eunice. You could work with any triggers, like we did with Shannon, and then you could use these elements of empathy, like we did with Jeremy.
Thanks.
Good luck.
I'll need it.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Stuart. So, John, I also want to be mindful of your time. Do you have a few more minutes if anyone
Oh yeah,
on the
no,
call
I
has
didn't
questions?
schedule anything right after this, so I'm happy to, as long as there are questions.
Okay. Anyone else? And I think at this point we can just open it up to audio questions. Everyone's audio seems to be working
cool.
well, and if we have trouble, you can let me know. Erica, do you want to go ahead and ask your question out loud? Is it quiet where you are?
Sure. I was just wondering, I was listening to you work with Jeremy, and I think it's hard sometimes, if we're being mindful and empathetic, that's great. But what if the other side of the table isn't? What can we possibly do to nudge other people to practice what we are?
I just got distracted by, you were the one that emailed me, right?
No.
Oh, okay then. Okay, never mind. I mixed up. So you're saying, say it one more time, because I got distracted by that.
Sure.
thought.
So I was asking if you could say a little more about how we can nudge others to be more mindful and empathetic, in particular when we're coming from like a junior workplace role, or in Jeremy's situation, like the side of the table that doesn't have the power.
Yeah. So I think what we have some, at least illusion of control, is our own experience. Yeah, our own focus of attention, the way we're using language. So the more I can embody that, the more I can be different maybe than a reactive person, the more that I find it has an effect on people, right? If I'm in a centered place, if I'm in a non-reactive, if my reptilian brain is not out of control, then that has a positive effect on people, right? If it is, even if I'm trying to cover it up, if I'm totally triggered, people feel that and people start reacting. Our bodies pick that up even below our conscious awareness. So what we've been doing here, this work on ourselves ahead of time and in the moment, if we notice we're getting triggered, and then having a bit of a structure, at least in our mind, of how we want to be speaking and listening to create some connection. All that I find are these very valuable tools, again, to create connection. And connection is, I've just had this thought come into my mind, maybe for the first time, is egalitarian. This quality of empathic connection doesn't have a superior and inferior. It doesn't have a more and less powerful. It's the connection itself is like a leveling ground, because we're two humans connecting on an empathic level. And if I can maintain my focus on what's going to support that and the feeling of that, then the other stuff can start to kind of align around that. And I know some circumstances are so difficult, it's hard to even imagine that could happen. But my experience is it can actually, even with the most difficult ones, and I've been there a lot in this work, that it's amazing if we can have the discipline to keep coming back to this, and the practice and the dedication to it. It's like inevitable that eventually this quality of connection emerges, and then something different can happen. So thanks for your question.
Super. Any other questions for John?
I see Marcy there.
So, John, I'm really interested in what you have to say about. We work in so many different communities in my work, in terms of the kind of conservation biology I do, and a lot of times people don't want to be connected with. And so, what you were just saying about the value of connection and how it works to be connected, I find in many of my interactions, it's more about power, authority, different kinds of respect. There's other things that people value. And so particularly as a woman,
putting out all these, great techniques of communication to feel connected, it falls flat when someone does not want to feel connected with, and that's not the value in terms of the communication. So I'm just wondering what you have to say about that.
Yeah. Well, first, I really want to hear that in your world that you don't get the sense there's necessarily a lot of desire to connect on this level, maybe. And if you try to, maybe that'll put you in some kind of a position where you'll create some resistance, or it won't help. Something like that. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, this language really works, and these techniques work when you're with people who are receptive and sort of have an inkling of them. But when you're working with, other people, as we reach out and work with stakeholders and communities, and we've got to figure out where they are, where we are, and we've got to watch how we're really languaging things. And when they're not valuing connection the same way we do, and yet you're looking for those places you do, whether it's around clean water, or you are looking for where you connect in terms of your interests, but connection isn't necessarily the value that they want in the communication or relationship. Does that make sense? It's sort of a fine line, especially as a woman when you're dealing with a lot of male decision makers.
Right.
So as Erica was saying what she was saying, I thought, that's my life, and I've been doing this for 30 years. And so I've watched how our communication has shifted within the environmental and social justice movement to being very, I think, open to what you're saying. But there's a whole group of people out there that, so in some ways we still have a target on our back in how we can position ourselves to do the strategic, powerful, sort of roles we need to play.
Yeah. So if I try to listen now to the needs that you're pointing at, so like effectiveness, what's actually going to be effective with people that are not necessarily receptive to this kind of communication?
Exactly.
And how to deal with these realities around power and lack of equality or respect, even things like that. So what I'd say is, again, maybe sound a little repetitive, but we can't control what other people are thinking or doing, really. But in terms, so maybe the thing I'd add from your question is, there's a lot of different ways we can use language to try to meet people where they are. So if they're going to react to certain ways of saying things, we can find other ways. But that really, to me, it's this inner practice of, where do I focus my attention? Where do I focus my attention? And when I say connection, it doesn't necessarily mean like being warm and being in relationship. And there are a lot of ways we can connect, at least within ourselves, to other people, and wherever they are, maybe with whatever values they're holding or belief systems or whatever actions they're taking that might be very abhorrent or repulsive, or just very, very different from what we value. Or whatever, whatever differences are there, to be able to just kind of keep focusing my attention on these places, that I've tried to offer. Like, okay, so what am I observing, and how can I be kind of clear in myself about what am I observing? What are my judgments? Maybe they have lots of judgments, but I have some too, probably. What am I aware of mine? What am I feeling in my body? Can I keep focusing there as a kind of grounding place, not to necessarily reveal things that are not going to be useful in the conversation, but at least for me to be connected to my body in a way that's centering and solidifying and kind of empowering, to be connected to me and what the needs are that I have, and what's going on over there that I can at least imagine and try to understand, so that I can find some skillful way to relate to this person that I want to be able to relate to. And it can look, in terms of the actual languaging, that can take many forms. And then, then I think in terms of being treated in ways that are less equal or respectful, I think there are ways to speak to that, to try to have a conversation about that. But in some ways, it might just be what we don't cooperate with or agree to. But at the same time, can I do it if I'm in your shoes, can I do it in a way that's not adversarial and combative and sort of counter punching, but more just firm? You know, I think of Gandhi and King and the nonviolence, like how to be really just firm and like, I'm not cooperating with this system, this way of thinking, this way of behaving, this way of treating people or whatever. However, I can still maintain empathy. I can maintain compassion. And this, what I offer to you is just kind of how you can do it with language and with attention. But it's like that, taking those courageous stands, but in a way that, you know, you can use these tools to sort of support that. But it doesn't necessarily mean people are going to just suddenly roll over and be like all warm fuzzy with you, of course. But I think the idea is regardless of what other people do, we can keep focusing our attention this way.
Yeah.
And my experience is that ultimately has an effect. It cannot not affect people eventually. That's my experience. Now, it may take longer than we want and be so subtle we can't see it for a while and be so frustrating. But I don't know what else to do. But I think it's the most powerful thing, like Gandhi and King showed. You know, if you can do this, it has a powerful effect eventually, at least. So hopefully I answered at least some of that.
Yeah,
and,
thank you. That was great. And that's where I try to be. I just wanted to see where you were at in terms of your perspective.
Yeah, this would just sort of be to support you to continue to be in that place and give you some more tools to work with. But sounds like, yeah, you're already kind of doing it. Yeah. So definitely a lot of people are not going to be warm fuzzy with us and want to communicate at this heart level. And that's my experience, is that you can still totally, even more importantly, use this with. Like, it's even more important with those folks to see if we can to apply these things, at least especially within ourselves. So anybody else?
So we've had some people who had to leave. We still have a number of people on, but I do want to be mindful that we have some people saying thank you on the chat. And I want to make sure that I give you a chance to say thank you as well, John. I don't want you to be left out in terms of closing.
People dropping off
in closing.
Yeah. No, I just, I'm happy to stay as long as there are questions and people here. But yeah, I again, thank you all for being on the call and interested in this. And again, what you're doing in the world to support the world being a much better place and a livable world to live on, and beyond that, just like the vision of how well we could be connected to the earth and the systems of this planet and the ecosystems and everything that you're working on environmentally. Yeah, thank you so much for your hard work on that. And I hope these tools support you to do it, to keep doing what you're doing, because we need you to, and all of us to focus in this way. But yeah, I'm happy to, if there are any more questions, happy to answer.
Hey, John, can I say something?
Sure, Linda.
Well, I'm the one that suggested John come because I've been working with John for 12 or 13 years. And one of the reasons I felt it was important is because I think so often when people go in to speak to somebody, they go in with something to say. And I wanted the fellows to have the opportunity to hear, how can you, and you may all do this really well, but sometimes it's hard to go in and with the idea of listening when you're wanting to put something on the table and have it accepted. And so I was thinking about you going in to talk to a politician. I was thinking, oh, can you listen underneath what they're saying so that what you say might connect a little bit more? So that was one of the reasons I asked that John present to you. So thank you all that we're here.
Thank you again, Linda.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, anybody else, Lauren? Bye, Shannon.
I don't see any more questions coming in, more just thank yous,
Okay.
as people probably have to log out for more Zoom meetings. which we all have
Yeah,
lots of
right.
these days.
Our life of world, one Zoom meeting to the next. Yes.
And yeah, thank you all so much for coming. And again, John, thank you so much. And thank you for making it so easy during what is just generally a difficult work time over these last few months as we prepared for this call. Thank you for being available and responsive and just helping us during what has just been a very chaotic time.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for making this happen. And I enjoyed working with you to get to this point. And your facilitating of this today. Thank you for all you've done.
Super. Well, everybody who's left, have a great day. And John, if you have any follow-up resources, feel free to email them to me and I will be in touch again as well.
Wonderful. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.